Any Joomla site is protected by username password. So there's a login form exactly like this one where you have your username and your password. Now it's important to pick a good username and password because anyone can find this website. So any Joomla site, they might have the login form in /administrator, which would then show the username password form, and then they can try different usernames and passwords. So it's important to pick a good username and password. Now you might wonder, what is a good username and password? So if you go to users manage, you can see all the users. If there's any strange users in there, make sure to delete them, of course. Go to the admin user here. So you'll see the minimum required is 12 characters long for a password. However, that does not mean it's secure. It's just the minimum requirements of Joomla. But what hackers will do is use password lists. So lists of millions of passwords, 10 million passwords, and so on. Where there's many passwords that are longer than 12 characters, right? So if we go to the internet, you can find such lists online. So you'll see 10 million password lists, top 200 most common password lists, 10,000 password lists. So you can find all kind of password lists here. There's 14 million password lists, rock.txt. We'll use that one later in the course to give a demonstration of this kind of attack. Okay, let's say we pick this one, for example. So what a hacker will do is such lists, and then they will try every password automatically one by one until they might find the right one. So if you pick a commonly used password, it's quite possible that they get into the system. And just because it's a long password doesn't mean it's secure. For example, this password is a bit longer, but it doesn't matter, right? It's in the list. So you'll try all kind of passwords automatically. For example, this is a longer password. Probably it's allowed by Joomla. So if we take a look, you'll see password accepted, but it's not a secure password at all. It's in such a password list. It's a commonly used password. So what you want to do is pick passwords that are not commonly used. So passwords that are not based on the dictionary. Of course, the length is an important factor, but probably things that are not word-based. So things you can find in the English dictionary, you don't want those. Not common names or cities. Just completely random characters and numbers, something like that. Because hackers will use those password lists, like this one, and try every password one by one. If your password is in such a list, it doesn't matter that it's 12 characters long, because they will find it eventually if it's a commonly used password. So make sure to pick a good password. One thing you could do is to download a password list like this yourself and then search in that list. For example, let's say we have the 10,000 most common password list, which is very basic. But then let's say we search on this page. Let's say we want to try the password Denmark. And you'll see, nope, that's not a good password. It's in that list. And can be longer passwords, of course, or different things. So maybe you think the password California is quite a long word. And nope, it's in there. Right, so you could just simply search such a password list. Now this is a really short list, so it's not really the best way to do it. You really want to have a longer list. For example, the rock.u file, 14 million passwords, so you want to check that list to see if the password you have in your mind is in that list. So let's say we download this rock.u.txt file. It's actually included in the Kali Linux system. Okay, not from here. Just download it from another site. Okay, I'm gonna download this word list. You'll see it's 133 megabytes of commonly used passwords. And what you can do is search in that password list of 40 million passwords if the password you picked is in there. Otherwise, hackers can simply get into your account by trying every password one by one, which will go more into detail and give some example of an actual hack happening in the next videos. Welcome back. You're looking at Kali Linux, a system often used by hackers. It's completely free, and hackers will often use this system to try and do their hacking because it comes with a lot of hacking tools. So this is a computer system that hackers often use. You'll see they have many kind of tools for information gathering, website tools, password attacks, wireless attacks, and so on. They have a lot of different tools to do their hacking. So it's a computer system designed just for hacking. And why does it matter? We're going to look at Joomla from the hacker's perspective. So any Joomla site has a front end, which is the website itself, and a back end, the administration panel. Now, what we can do, we know the username and password, we can modify the entire site. So one way hackers could try to get access to a system is by trying to get access using this administration login, so using the username and password. So to do that, they need to know the username and the password. They could try a default username, perhaps the name of the author is written somewhere on the page. But for the password, they don't know, right? So they could try to guess it, but it would take ages and ages. So typically they use password lists. So lists of millions of passwords that are commonly used. You can find many of such passwords online, also included with Kali Linux. So if we search, for example, for rockyutxt, so let's search for rockyutxt. That's an example password list included by default in Kali. And this is simply a password list of 14 million passwords, so commonly used passwords. And the way a hacker could try to get access is simply try password after password after password in that list. So if you pick a common password, they'll be able to get in. Where is this password list stored on Kali, you might wonder. If we go to the folder, there's a directory /user share word lists. And there the file is. So millions of passwords. I'm going to copy it and copy it to the home directory. And just extract it to show you what's inside this password list. So you'll see they are really commonly used passwords. So I have to show you with the terminal because the file itself, you'll see this file is here, but if I click Notepad, it crashes because this password list is so huge that Notepad cannot open it. So now I'm going to type a command. Now don't worry if you're not familiar with Linux at all or hacking or whatever. It's just a command to show you the list of passwords. So to show the passwords in that list. So I can show you that these are commonly used passwords and I can browse through them. And you'll see there are lots and lots of different passwords that are commonly used. Not just names, but also numbers, common words, all kind of common passwords. So this is a collection of passwords people used in the past on different websites and they got leaked. So this is simply a collection of that. And this list goes on and on and on. So what a hacker can do, of course, is to manually try that. So for example, let's say the username is admin. They could try, okay, the first one in the list, copy paste. The second one in the list, copy paste. The third one in the list, copy paste. But because there are so many possible passwords in this list, so 140 million or 1 million passwords, that would take ages. So they use automated tools for that. There are all kind of tools in Kali. Every Joomla site is protected by a backend, by a username password. So let's say we know the username or we guess it. Then we could try one by one passwords in a password list. Now, if we were to do that manually, like a list of 1 million passwords or 10 million common passwords, it would take forever. So what a hacker will typically do is use a tool for that automatically writes those passwords one by one and checks if they are correct or not. One of such tools is the burp suite. So if I open the start menu here and type burp, you'll see we have the burp suite here. And this program can automatically type passwords one by one in anything on the internet that is username password protected. Now it's a bit technical to use, so I'm going to do next, start burp, and it takes a little bit of time to start, but it's a graphical program that can do this automatically. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So it might look very complicated with all these tabs and things on the screen. What we're going to do is click on target and open a web browser, because the burp suite, basically it intercepts the web browser So it starts Chrome. You'll see it starts Chrome, and then everything that's communicated to the Joomla site is then shown. So if we open this URL, we can minimize this. Let's go to the URL. You'll see open the link, and anything that the Chrome is sending behind the scenes is then shown. For example, it's getting all these files, some JavaScript file here. It's getting images, so there must be some images like this one, some images here. So it's interacting with or it's listening to what Chrome is doing. And so what we're of course interested in listening to is what happens when we click admin password, let's say pass, or whatever, it doesn't matter what password we type here, we click login, and you'll see it did a post method. That's probably where it sends username password. So if you scroll down, you'll see username password. So that's what we're interested in, because we want to manipulate the password. So right click on this post request, send to intruder. Then the thing we want to modify is the password. So I'm going to remove it completely and type 2 of these. Those are means to replace it. It will be replaced by the passwords one by one. We're going to the payload tab, click load, and we select our password list. So list of commonly used passwords. You'll see this is a shorter list. It's not a 1 million list, because it's would take much longer to try all those passwords in video. So I just made a short list. We can actually minimize this. In settings, we can set the duration. So how often it should try a new password. Should it wait 2 seconds for the next password? Or maybe only 200 milliseconds. So let's say 1 second per password, just for demonstration purposes. Click start attack. And you'll see it's trying one password at a time. So it's trying all those passwords. Now, how do we know what is the correct password? We look for differences in either the status code or the length. So if we sort by status code, you'll see there is no difference there. Let's sort by length. And you'll see there is one password with a much longer length. So let's try that password. So that's the password here, the only password where the length of the response is longer. We click login, and there you go. We just hacked the Joomla site using the brute force method. We did it by trying every password in this password list automatically, and then the result, we could sort it and then find the right password. So this is a realistic attack, but also an attack that takes a long time for a hacker. So they might have a list of 1 million passwords, and it might be running all day trying to get the right password. So it's also something that is not the first thing used by a hacker, because it takes such a long time, but at the same time it's automatic. So it can be effective if you pick the weak passwords that, okay, Joomla only asks for a length of the password. So if I go to users here and manage, we can go to admin. You'll see it says asks for the length of the password, minimal 12 characters, but that doesn't mean it's a secure password. It could be 12 characters, but a commonly used password, as was the case in this example. So what you want to do is to pick a password that is not in such a commonly used password list, like rockutxt or any other password list. Pick a really uncommon password, not a dictionary or name-based, and that way you can prevent this kind of attack from happening to your site. A tool that is often used by hackers is Joomscan. And so if we have a website, install that command line tool. So first we have to run an update. It takes a second or so to do that, and then we install Joomscan. And then we can run Joomscan. And you'll see to run Joomscan, we simply specify the target. So Joomscan -u. See some general information, the version and the authors, with the website link. and then you press enter, and it starts scanning the WordPress system. So it will find things like, is there a firewall? The version of Joomla, is there any known security vulnerabilities in your Joomla installation, like is it not up to date? Checking if there's directory listing enabled, and all kind of security configurations that might be interest to the hacker. So it scans for all kind of things, also backups, log files, checking for any sensitive configuration files. So it's a tool to quickly do a scan, hacker, to get a general picture of the Joomla install. Now, this kind of tools exist for many content management systems or many sites. Quickly check for the security of the system and a general configuration. For example, it might be that you're running an old Joomla version, vulnerable, or it might be you're not running a firewall, or anything else, right? So it's a quick way to do a quick scan on a site, or in this case a Joomla site, with the Joomscan tool. So hackers will often do that. So the website, of course, would be whatever website you have. There are many plugins that you can install in Joomla. You can find many different things that you might think you need for your website. One thing to remember is that any plugin you install is essentially code. So PHP code, JavaScript code, and so on. That means that any code can have bugs or security bugs. So you'll see here all kind of plugins can be installed for Joomla, but by doing so, you increase the attack surface. So the more lines of code, the more security or potential security bugs there are websites. So in general, the less plugins you use, the more secure your website will be, because any plugin with security bugs can be used by a hacker. They only need one, right? So if you have a lot of plugins, they have more chance of finding such a security bug rather than if you just have no plugins at all or only very few. So the more plugins you have, the more likely it is your site gets hacked, basically. And then there's lots of plugins that will only be made by a developer for quick cache rather than really looking at the security of the plugin. And so it's important to be really careful with plugins, because no matter how secure you make your login form, how secure you make your website, computer running the website, it just takes one plugin for your website to be hacked. So just one little plugin that has a security bug, and then your website can be hacked. So you want to be really careful with plugins. If you don't need any plugins, don't install them. Then you will have more security system. In Joomla, you can install all kind of plugins, but any plugin you install either could be a security vulnerabilities, it could have multiple security bugs in there, or it could have security bugs on purpose in there, and they're called backdoors. So you want to be really careful with plugins you install, even if they are super simple plugins. So let's take a look. If we go to System, Install Extensions, you'll see you can install a Joomla plugin from anywhere. And simply upload a file, and that would get the plugin, install the plugin. You can also discover them. But with any plugin you install, there is a security risk. So let me give you an example. Here we have the plugins section in Joomla, and we installed a plugin. So let's enable it. You'll see it's already enabled. Click Save. And on first sight, we don't really see anything special about this. But this plugin is malicious. This plugin contains backdoor. So with this plugin installed, anybody has access to the website, so any visitor can run commands on the underlying system. So for example, we can now run system commands, like we can check the current directory, and it would simply output that on the web itself. So this is a backdoor. We can specify any command, and the computer running the Joomla block will then run it in this backdoor. For example, we can check the current user, and we can run any command now that will be executed by the computer running the Joomla block. So with this, they could then get your Joomla passwords, they can delete the website or do anything because they can run system commands directly from the website URL. So this is one possible security backdoor that has been installed by the plugin. So for example, we can list the files in the directory, and you'll see these are all the files in the website's directory. But besides listing, they can delete files, they can add files, they can do anything on the system. And that's because this plugin introduced a backdoor. So if I disable this plugin, you'll see that it no longer works. So we'll disable it, save, and you'll see if I then run it, you'll see nothing happens. So any plugin you install, it could have a backdoor, the hacker do malicious things, or it could have accidental security vulnerabilities. So in this case, backdoor on purpose. So if it's enabled, let's say the hacker made this plugin and the user then installs it, the hacker can then do anything on the computer by modifying this command parameter. So for example, they can get the current date, they can get the name of the computer, they can start listing files, they can delete files, and so on. You want to be very careful with plugins you install because any plugin is potentially malicious, and it can be very hard to discover that. For example, the website itself functions just as normal, and only somebody who knows would know that you can specify a command parameter. Only the hacker would know that parameter is possible, and it would then have access to the complete computer and Joomla block. So you want to be really careful. Any plugin could be malicious, could have a backdoor in it, or security vulnerabilities by accident. Welcome back. One thing to watch out for is that you can put a lot of files on your website, on your server. Don't put anything secret or confidential on there, because it might be the hacker can find those files, even if they are not any links to them. So how does that work? So let's say this is the website URL. I try to start looking for files using a dictionary. So let's say this is the word list. So they could try manually, which is typically not how it's done, but it's possible. They could try /profile.pdf, go for the second word, /info.pdf. And they could do one by one. So then would be /resources. So the resources PDF, and then icons PDF. So they just go down the list to try and find files that may be on the server, but are not like linked to. So files that could provide some information, maybe login information or other useful information for a hacker. And so they typically use automated tools for that, like GoBuster that you've seen before. So they could run a command like this, GoBuster -u with the website URL. You'll see this is the website URL. -w for the word list. This is just a very long line that you'll see ends with txt, so that's a word list. It's nothing interesting about it, it's just a word list. So I have it open. You'll see this is just a word list, so a list of common words, and it will try automatically to see if those files exist, and specifies a format. So in this case, it's a text format, could be PDF, could be docx, and so on. So let's actually run it and see what happens. So don't forget to add dir in front. And this is just a file format, so it's looking for txt formats, txt files in this case. So you see, immediately we found a file confidential/confidential.txt. So we could take a look. And you'll see we found some useful information, the access code to the building. And just a hypothetical example, we found confidential txt. Now a hacker might not just look for txt files for anything interesting. For example, maybe there's doc or docx files, so office files, maybe PDF files or other file formats. So basically the hacker is just searching on your server for any possible file that could provide them some information. Files that is not supposed to be seen by others. For example, here we found /secrets.pdf. With this command, they can quickly scan a website for files using this dictionary, so it doesn't even have to have links to the file, and using a file format, so basically scanning for hidden things. So that's what they can do with GoBuster. To keep aware of, don't keep any files that is not specifically for your blog on the server, because a hacker can find them. So it's important to be aware of that. Now, besides the files, the same thing applies to directories. So if we remove this, you'll see it's scanning for hidden directories instead, using the specified word list. So it's both for if you have folders, don't leave them, like old installation files or other things, don't leave them on your site. And also files, like remove everything that is not necessary for your WordPress site, because it could provide information for a hacker, information you don't want exposed, or maybe information that helps them to get in. For example, maybe there's another software or installation running or available on your WordPress server, so they could use that to get in the server, and then your WordPress site is also hacked. So it's another way in for a hacker potentially, and that's why it's important to remove anything that is not specifically for your WordPress blog. So that's why it's very important to be aware of that. And also there are multiple word lists. So if I go to the home directory here, I can go to user share word lists, and you'll see if I go to the Dearbuster directory, there are all kind of word lists. And it's not just limited to English, there are word lists for other languages as well. So these are English language word lists. But you'll see, for example, here's a Spanish word list, Catalan word lists, and there are many word lists on the internet as well. So hackers have lots and lots of those lists that they can then use to try to automatically find possible files or directories that are on your site that are not supposed to be exposed. So it's important to clean up your whole server, only have your website, only have your WordPress in there and nothing else. Anything exposed, the hacker can have access to. With any Joomla site you have to care not just about the security of the Joomla system, but also the computer running Joomla. So every website you see on the internet has a computer running below. That computer is called a server. So you want to secure your server as well, not just the Joomla site, but also the server. I'll give you an example. Here we have a Joomla website. So we have the dashboard and the site itself. And you'll see the Joomla site is running on this internet address. Any website has a unique internet address. So for example, you can get it with the ping command. For example, you can do wordpress.com and you'll see that has this unique home address, this unique IP address. We can do any website, youtube.com, and you'll see has this IP address. So given an IP address, a hacker can scan the computer for any open services. A computer might have one or more services. It might have a remote desktop. Maybe it's running a web server, so allowing to view websites, which any Joomla site is running a web server. It's running some other things. So a hacker can scan that with command nmap, within the target IP address or the target website. And then it gets it returns this command, which services are running. So you'll see here, there's the web services, the domain HTTP, those are for showing the website. And it might run some other services like remote shell or remote desktop. So in this case, there is a remote shell, SSH. Every service has its own unique number. So web typically has a number of 80 or 443. Remote shell has 22 and so on. Those are just standard services. By doing a scan, hacker knows which services are running, and then he could try to use those services. Now, a lot of them are probably password protected, like remote desktop or remote shell, but they can still try to connect. For example, they can try with a username. They might simply try to guess the username or try to figure it out in another way, and then connect. And you'll see ask for a password. So what a hacker could do is try different passwords, 123, 1234, and so on. They could simply try to guess, or they could try a more systematic approach. So instead of guessing, they could use a password list. Now there are many such lists. If you check on the internet, search for password list, you'll see there are password lists of 10 million, 200, 10,000, 40 million. So those are commonly used passwords. That means that if you picked a bad password, they can use that to try to get into the server. What they might do is use another tool to try to brute force it, so to try those passwords automatically in a list. So they might try to get the password list. It's included here in this system by default. So I'm going to copy it, extract, and it's simply a password list of 14 million commonly used passwords. So if I show you, those are just commonly used passwords, so many different passwords. And what you can then try to do is use that list to try passwords automatically using the SSH service or desktop service or whatever is running and password protected. It might even be email, right? They can do that with a tool called Hydra. So we type Hydra, the username, then the password list and the target. In this case, we are attacking SSH, but it might be email, it might be remote desktop, or any other service that the web computer is running. And then we simply wait. It's trying those passwords automatically. And you see for the username, it found the password in a second or so. Now in the real world, it might take longer. A good password, they might take several hours to find the password. But if you pick a really good password, it's not in such lists. So given a password, they could then log into remote desktop or log in remotely to the server. There you see, I am now remotely logged in to the server. Would now be able, for example, to go into the directory and modify any Joomla file on the computer. So it's important at final not just to secure the Joomla system, but also to secure the server, the computer running underneath the system, the computer that Joomla is running on. So that means you want to lock down that computer, not any remote services like SSH, remote desktop, or any other service, only the absolute necessary, which is the server. So if you do that, it will be harder for a hacker to get in because they will try different ways to attack your site. So they won't just attack the Joomla login. So they won't just attack this login form, but they'll also attack the computer underneath. So that can be SSH. It can be whatever is running on the computer. It might be email. It might be your some file server or whatever. They'll try to find a way in order to then take over the whole website and perhaps do more damage or do things. So you want to secure the computer, the server that is running your website as well. Now, depending on your hosting, you may or may not be able to do that. So if you use shared hosting, you can't really do much there. If you have your own VPS or your own cloud, you want to secure that as well.